Listening comprehension, as I've said before, is the core skill that leads us to speaking better, leads us to reading better, leads us to a better sense of the language. Hi there, Steve Coffin here, and today I want to talk about listening, the most powerful activity in language learning. Remember, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, click on the bell for notifications. If you follow me on a podcast service, please leave a comment. So, I've spoken a lot about listening, but today I was reminded of how tremendously powerful a learning activity it is. I had to spend much of the day cleaning up around the house. We were donating some books and other material to the thrift store, getting rid of a lot of garbage, so I had to go to the recycling depot. So there was a good an hour and a half, 2 hours between working and driving. And I listened to my Persian podcast, B+ podcast. Now, first of all, what's powerful is that I'm able to use all this time that would otherwise be dead time. Second of all, this B+ podcast, this Ali Bandari, I think it is, he talks about a variety of different subjects. What's of interest to me is the history of Iran. So he talks about the Safavi dynasty. He talks about different kings, Shah of the Safavi dynasty, Shah Ismail, Shah Abbas, and so forth. And of course, I have heard some of this stuff before, but I get it again in a slightly different context. So I'm learning, not deliberately learning, not taking notes, but gradually things are becoming clearer to me through listening. And I'm reminded of the fact that throughout history, for most of recorded history, we had no writing. People couldn't read. Like, yes, the first, one of the earliest, in fact, examples of writing is this writing on these clay cylinders. And in fact, Darius's famous one of the first written documents about human rights was written in cuneiform script on these clay cylinders. But if we go through history, again going back to that time, the legend of Gilgamesh, or the Odyssey, or the Iliad, or in South and Southeast Asia, the Ramayana stories from China, from elsewhere. People have had stories and people listened. It's just that they didn't have MP3 players, and they listened more than once. And we all have this, as children, we had our favorite stories. And these, in order for the Iliad or the Ramayana or any of these famous stories to be passed on from generation to generation, people told these stories more than once. And they were favorite stories. And people were happy to listen to them over and over again. And they enjoyed different aspects of the story every time they listened. And similarly, as I'm listening, as I said in one of my previous videos, I don't deliberately try to understand. And of course, I lose focus from time to time. And I'm sure that children sitting around a campfire listening to a story, every so often they, look somewhere else and they lose focus and then they come back to it. It doesn't matter. But it's such a powerful means of bringing knowledge into your brain. And it evokes the subject in a way that video can't do. I remember when I got these storytellers, Chinese storytellers, telling the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and the man's voice and the way he conjured up horses and dust, I could almost smell the dust and see the action because it was all words. And when I got to see a video of the same story, it was a pale version of the same, far less left to the imagination, obviously fewer words. So this listening is so powerful. You'll see on my shot of my screen at link that I've been, listening to these stories and studying the text so that I understand them a bit better each time. But I've never looked, and these are videos. These are YouTube videos. And I'm sure he shows a lot of stuff and pictures of these Persian kings and whatever, but I just listen. I just listen and read. And so I have an image, incomplete, somewhat imperfect, it doesn't matter. My knowledge is accumulating. Every time I listen, I gather a few more words. I get a different sense of these kings and their time and Isfahan and different aspects of the history, the culture, the geography of Iran, and some words, and it's all gradually accumulating without any deliberate effort on my part. But it's accumulating. It's accumulating like I've often used the image in language learning of this. If you start rolling a snowball down a hill, it'll gradually pick up more and more snow, and that's how it is. And yet it's so portable. It's so easy to do. If I had to watch his videos, I would have to sit down and watch them. And I'm going to do a video about reading, which is powerful in its own way because it's a lovely environment to get into, just, you and the text, without the sound, without the audio, just you and the text. That's also powerful. But reading is something that has come relatively lately to humans. And in particular, the vast majority of humans didn't read until about the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century. And so they relied on the spoken word. They relied on familiar stories told over and over again as a means of acquiring information, as a means of entertainment. And we now can use that same, the wonder of storytelling as a means of acquiring knowledge, as a means of acquiring language, as a form of entertainment. And of course, the means of delivering this have just proliferated. So we have podcasts, and we have, audiobooks and different services, podcast services, audiobook services. And so this rich world where, it used to be that we'd have to maybe sit in a room somewhere or sit outside underneath the trees to listen to the storyteller spin his or her tale. Very often a story that we were familiar with in the olden days. And now we just carry that with us. I mean, how many stories can I keep in how many different languages just in my little iPhone? And I can listen to whichever one I want to listen to. I can even shuffle them and listen to them in different orders. I can go to different languages. All of those things are now available to us. And I think, so listening is not only a very effective way of learning. Listening comprehension, as I've said before, is the core skill that leads us to speaking better, leads us to reading better, leads us to a better sense of the language. But it is also a major form of entertainment. It's a major form of enjoying the language, particularly when we don't have the opportunity to be surrounded by people speaking the language. There are so many means today through technology whereby we can access the language and enjoyment and knowledge through listening. And so, and another thing about listening too is it's kind of easy to do. So it gets you going. As I've said before, very often the main thing is to get started. So even in terms of a day, today I had to do some chores around the house, but I start listening. Now, because I've been listening and not understanding a fair amount of it, I am now, my curiosity is piqued. It triggers my reading, and it just keeps me going down the path of learning the language. So I wanted to touch on this, the importance of listening as the easiest thing you can do in order to create the time and push yourself forward in your language learning. And I'll leave you a couple of videos about listening that I've done in the past, and hopefully, again, I don't contradict myself. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.